Our bank is located in a prime office district, and we continuously have customers from large corporations visiting us. Therefore, unfortunately, it takes some time to assist each customer.
The tone was gentle, but the content was outrageously arrogant. So, what you're saying is, a poor old man in dirty work clothes, who certainly doesn't look wealthy, should wait until the big corporate clients who arrived after him are taken care of. Yasmin looked at my attire and scoffed.
If you're unhappy with such priorities, perhaps a poor person like you should use another bank.
I never expected to be ridiculed this blatantly at the main branch of a major bank. All right, I understand. With that, I pulled out my smartphone. My name is Ryan O'Brien. I'm 70 years old. I run a small local factory called O'Brien Manufacturing. We primarily produce P&Os on commission from manufacturers. By the way, I own several bank accounts. Recently, I've been unable to make deposits into the account from which my grandchild's tuition is deducted. I've been extremely busy lately, and I finally found time to go to the bank today after some important work at the factory. Then, I headed straight to a meeting with a client in the city center, so I'm not in my local area. However, I need to make a deposit of $100 today because it's being withdrawn tomorrow. Thinking this, I went to the main branch of SmithKline Bank near where my client meeting was held after finding some time. Upon entering, the place was packed with people. Of course, the ATMs were no exception. As I stood dumbfounded, suddenly, someone behind me shouted,
Don't stop.
Turning around, there stood a bank employee with a nameplate that read Supervisor, Yasmin Martinez.
Come on, you're obstructing other customers. If you're not in line, please don't stop.
While saying this, she forcibly placed me at the end of a long line at the ATM. I was a bit annoyed by her attitude, but given it's a large bank, I assumed it must be busy during the day and reluctantly waited my turn. Standing for a long time at this age, especially after a busy work day, is quite taxing. 30 minutes later, it was finally my turn. However, as I stepped forward, the ATM emitted a loud noise and the screen froze with a message adjusting displayed, rendering it immobile. I called over a bank employee. Excuse me. The same Yasmin came over, not bothering to hide her annoyed expression.
What is it?
She asked in a languid voice, her face expressionless and slightly angry. I'm sorry, but this machine has stopped working. Yasmin looked at the screen and sighed irritably.
It will be back to normal soon.
Saying that, she walked away from me. Thinking it would be resolved quickly, I waited about 5 minutes, but it still didn't work. Reluctantly, I called for an employee again. Excuse me. Again, Yasmin approached me with a very reluctant expression.
What now?
Her expression seemed to say, "Don't call me again." I didn't want to call her over repeatedly either. As I muttered this in my mind, I approached her. I'm sorry to bother you again, but it's still not working. At that moment, Yasmin clicked her tongue. I saw her click her tongue, and I clearly heard the tisk sound.
Did you press something weird?
What kind of employee is this? She's not young, and definitely not a newbie since she's a supervisor. How can she get away with such unruly behavior?
If it's not working, please try another machine.
What? Yasmin's curt response made me speak out involuntarily. Another machine means lining up again.
Yes, that's right.
Yasmin answered without hesitation. Looking back, the line was now even longer than before. At that point, I gave up on using the ATM. I was furious with this banker Yasmin, but complaining here wouldn't help deposit the money into my grandchild's account. Reminding myself of this, I headed to the counter. The counter was also quite crowded. However, it seemed better than the ATM, so I took a number from the ticket dispenser at the counter and squeezed into a small gap on the bench where others were sitting. Looking around, it was clear that the clientele at the main branch of SmithKline Bank were upscale, clad in fancy suits, discussing briefly at the counter before swiftly leaving the bank. In the meantime, another busy-looking businessman took a seat. Several employees, never ceasing to smile, were constantly on the move. Yasmin, too, was all smiles when dealing with the businessmen in fancy suits. A stark contrast to her demeanor with me. While observing this scene, several minutes passed. Yet, my number was never called. Announcements occasionally mentioned that the order of numbers might fluctuate, but the recently called numbers were more than 20 after mine. The numbers before and after mine had already been called. Thinking something was definitely wrong, I raised my hand and called for an employee. "Excuse me." An employee who noticed my call rushed off somewhere. Seconds later, Yasmin appeared again, her face still showing obvious annoyance, and the employee who came to fetch her disappeared.
What is it this time?
A casual remark can sometimes be infuriating. This time, that was exactly the case for me. I haven't been called at all, you know. I had forgotten to behave politely but managed to stop myself from shouting.
Please take a number.
As if I didn't know that already. With such an implication in her tone, I reluctantly showed Yasmin the ticket I had. "I already have one." Seeing the ticket, Yasmin, without even a word of apology, bluntly said.
Then just wait.
As she turned to leave, I stopped her. "Wait, but I've been waiting, and my number was passed a long time ago." At that moment, upon hearing Yasmin's repeated tongue-clicking, I persisted with my plea. "My number has long been overdue. There was an announcement about possible shifts in order, but this is more than just a shift." I heard a voice behind me as I raised my voice in frustration.
What's the matter?
As I turned around, there stood a female bank employee, not Yasmin. Her name tag read Supervisor Taylor Simpson.
Did something happen to you, sir?
Speaking to this person named Taylor, who seemed much more approachable and gentler than Yasmin, I felt relieved that someone reasonable had finally come along and shared my situation. "Look, my number is way past due, and I haven't been called at all." When Taylor took my ticket, she frowned and said,
Oh dear, I am terribly sorry. Please give me a moment.
She then started whispering to Yasmin, who was standing next to her.
What's going on? Still not being called?
I guess today we have a lot of important people visiting, and it's extra busy. Seems like we can't manage everything.
I could overhear their voices. Although they were trying to speak inaudibly, I managed to pick up their conversation. Having checked the piano's accuracy by listening and confirming it myself all this time, my ears have become trained. I end up hearing things I didn't want to hear. In a way, moments like these are somewhat of a loss.
At a time like this, that dirty old man in work clothes shows up. That's just the worst.
Where did the politeness go when she was speaking to me just now? It turned out Taylor was the same as Yasmin. They didn't realize I could hear them. But Taylor's recent remark made it clear.
Truly the worst. Plus, earlier, he was just standing around dumbfounded in the middle of the busy flow of customers, complaining about the ATM not working, and on top of that, he only wants to deposit $100 at the counter.
Taylor grimaced and said,
Seriously annoying.
even if I hadn't heard her voice, her lip movement made it clear what she was saying.
Just smooth talk him for now, and keep him waiting a little longer.
After that, they approached me again, standing in front of me. Taylor, with a voice completely different from her whispers, started speaking calmly.
Sir, our bank is located in a prime business area, and especially during the day like today, we continuously have customers from large corporations visiting us. Naturally, such clients are involved in very important matters and are extremely busy. So, unfortunately, it takes some time before we can assist you.
The tone was gentle, but the content was outrageously arrogant. Perhaps other elderly customers would have been convinced to wait a little longer by this. But not me. So, a poor old man in dirty work clothes, who certainly doesn't look wealthy, should just wait until the big corporate clients who came after him are done. As I said this, Taylor's smile froze into a grimace.
Our clients here have significant matters, and as a major bank, it's our crucial role to support those important tasks.
Yasmin chimed in forcefully. Perhaps other elderly folks would have been overwhelmed and rendered speechless by such a strong response. But whether they're from a big corporation or not, they're still customers. Such discrimination in treatment is unacceptable for a bank that's supposed to serve everyone. Unaware of my thoughts, Yasmin scoffed at my attire.
If you're dissatisfied with such priorities, perhaps someone like you, who appears impoverished, should use another bank.
I never thought I'd be so blatantly ridiculed at the main branch of a major bank. All right, I understand. With that, I took out my smartphone. Hello, this is Ryan speaking. Thank you for your help earlier. I called someone on my phone.
Hey. You know you shouldn't be making calls inside the bank.
Yasmin raised her voice in excitement.
It's David speaking. Thank you for your assistance just now.
The phone speaker was on, so not only I but also David's voice could be heard by others, including Yasmin and Taylor. Both their expressions stiffened.
Hawk, what's wrong, Ryan? Did something happen?
Yasmin and Taylor turned pale. They should get even paler now. David, I'm currently at the main branch of SmithKline Bank. I was trying to deposit into an account for my grandson's future when your employee told me to leave because I'm just a poor man in work clothes. David's anger was evident in his voice.
What?
An institution with such staff treatment doesn't inspire confidence for financial dealings. The planned loan of $100 million, I'll secure it elsewhere.
What?
What?
After a few seconds of silence, David, the president, raised his voice furiously.
Staff there. Can you hear me? Is that true?
In this situation, Yasmin and Taylor were clearly panicking.
Sir, it's disruptive to other customers here. Please come this way.
Taylor guided me toward the back office. I decided to comply politely. Feeling bad for keeping David waiting, I apologized. Sorry, I'll have to hang up now. As I apologized, I ended the call and headed to the back office.
What's going on here?
As soon as we entered the back office, Yasmin barked. Of course, she knew I had already ended the call on my phone. I just had a meeting with your president. Taylor looked puzzled.
Really? A meeting in those work clothes? If that's true, it's quite disrespectful as a businessman, isn't it?
Taylor laughed snidely through her nose. Yasmin, perhaps realizing something, smirked maliciously. Even after hearing the president's voice, they still doubted.
We only heard the voice of the person claiming to be the president earlier. Without concrete proof that it was indeed the president, we cannot apologize, and frankly, it amounts to you spreading false information and obstructing our work.
Taylor spoke with a smug look, as if she had just checkmated me.
We may have to call the police unless you offer a proper apology.
Yasmin agreed with her. Instinctively, I blurted out, "Why should I apologize?" I struggled to understand why I, who have been treated so dismissively, should be the one apologizing.
Since we can't see the face, there's no way we could know it's the president, and it's because of you throwing around nonsense.
It was just us in the back room. No other customers were around. Yasmin's tone was intentionally altered. It seemed I was no longer a customer, but a criminal, or just an easy target for threats.
How could someone of your low status possibly be in contact with the president?
Hearing this, Yasmin clapped her hands and laughed mockingly.
Low status old fool.
Watching the two of them, I thought, these people can no longer be called bank employees. And I decided I wouldn't hold back any longer. Hello David, can you see me? I waved towards my smartphone. The laughter from the two stopped abruptly as they heard me speaking.
Ryan, yes, I can see you. How did it go with what we discussed earlier?
Excuse me for a moment, I said, then turned my smartphone screen towards Yasmin and Taylor. The two, who had been looking at me with scorn and mockery, suddenly paled and tensed up when they saw David on my screen. Does this convince you now? Apparently, David was looking quite fearsome. I couldn't see it myself, but from their reactions to the smartphone screen, it was clear they were shrinking back in fear. David, before this call connected, these two bank employees were saying they had only heard your voice and doubted if it was really you. That's why I switched to a video call this time. Yasmin said in a low voice.
Hey, hold on a sec.
And then she extended her hand forward, signaling for us to stop.
We didn't have that conversation.
Taylor suddenly became aggressive and angry.
David, this man was causing a disturbance inside the bank, and when we addressed it, he used his acquaintance with you as a pretext to retaliate against us.
Taylor pointed at me, and Yasmin joined in.
Yes, that's right. If you claim we did such things, do you have any proof?
Suddenly, a loud voice drowned out Yasmin's question, asking, "Do you have any proof?"
What is going on here?
Yasmin's voice was overtaken by her own voice, leaving both Yasmin and Taylor confused and stopping in their tracks.
What was that just now?
Having startled David as well, I said, "I'm sorry, David." While still showing my smartphone to Yasmin and Taylor, I pulled an IC recorder from my left pocket with my right hand. I've been recording our conversation since I entered this room. As they looked embarrassed, I made sure the IC recorder was visible to my smartphone's camera. "Can you see this, David?"
Yes.
David responded in a low voice.
So, you were recording the conversation before you contacted me.
David is sharp. His subordinate's misdeeds were clear, and he seemed quite angry, but perhaps this was a good opportunity for someone managing such a large bank. I continued to think so. I always carry this to compare piano sounds. I never thought I'd use it like this. So Yasmin, Taylor, here's your evidence. Yasmin clenched her fists, visibly frustrated. Taylor looked down, furrowing her brow, lost in thought. Shall I play the entire conversation for the president? As I was about to press the recorder's button, a voice intervened.
Wait a minute. We understand now. We were wrong.
Taylor hurriedly said. Yasmin looked confused.
What?
After a few seconds of exchanging glances, both of them apologized simultaneously.
We're sorry.
We're sorry.
That's the situation, David. If employees like these are left unchecked, I'm afraid I'll have to cancel our financing deal. As I said this, David hastily responded through the smartphone.
Wait. I understand. These employees will be severely disciplined. So please, let's continue with the financing.
I immediately replied, "Okay." Not actually planning to cancel the loan. I'd still like to proceed with our discussion, David.
Thank you.
In response to what David said, I quickly replied, "However, leaving such individuals unaddressed can have repercussions not only on other diligent employees, but also on your customers. This could potentially jeopardize the stability of the company, making it difficult to secure financing. So, I kindly ask for your cooperation in handling this matter." David responded solemnly, expressing his sincerity through the smartphone screen. David is a trustworthy individual, so if there's any organizational pus, I'd like it to be brought out as soon as possible. Let's discuss the financing further at a later date. With that, I ended the call. After a few seconds of silence, as I looked at the two, they both stood there, looking defeated and staring at the ground. With that, I'll take my leave, I said, leaving the room with the two behind. As I was leaving the room, I heard voices calling out,
Please wait.
Please wait.
Yasmin and Taylor hurried after me. I stopped without turning back to face them and asked, "What now?"
We're very sorry about earlier.
They both said simultaneously, apologizing deeply.
This whole mess was caused by our negligence. Please forgive us.
So, they finally admitted it after all the evasive excuses before. Well, at least that's good. Yasmin then raised her head and said,
So, since we've sincerely apologized and you might have forgiven us, could you please ask David not to penalize us?
I almost blurted out, "What are you talking about?" But I knew I had to keep calm at this moment, and I just barely managed to hold back.
In exchange, when you visit next time, We will treat you as a VIP and prioritize any requests you might have.
I then turned to face the two of them. So, even if there are other customers waiting, you'll take care of me first. Taylor responded with a smile.
Yes, that's exactly right.
I sighed. That won't do. You two fundamentally don't understand. Both of them froze simultaneously at my words.
Ha,
Ha,
I'm telling you, I don't find any joy in such treatment. Rather, I wanted you to say that from now on you'll change your attitudes and treat all customers fairly, without prioritizing. Yasmin and Taylor looked away, avoiding eye contact, as I continued. If you rank customers, those you place at the top might feel good, but those you inevitably place at the bottom will see how you neglect them and will lose trust in this bank. Even if the president is good, the bank will fail if its workers act like this. It seems that indeed, navigating a large organization can be challenging. Your president wouldn't want that. Seeing them completely silenced, I returned to a calm tone. I'll let David judge this incident, including this conversation.
ha.
ha,
They looked up, almost tearful. I'll contact the president later and discuss what just happened. Don't say there's no evidence or any other trivial excuse. With that, I left the bank without looking back. Later, David informed me that Yasmin and Taylor had been engaging in various misdeeds, including favoritism towards certain customers, bullying young employees, and even blackmailing a supervisor who had an affair. They were each assigned to remote branches. When I heard this, I thought that just assigning them wouldn't change their behavior. Frankly, I thought David, the bank president, was still too lenient. As expected, Yasmin and Taylor showed no signs of remorse in their new positions. Yasmin was fired after she repeatedly grabbed the collars of elderly customers who didn't line up properly at the ATM, and young employees who made mistakes, and escalated her behavior even after her supervisors warned her. Taylor was arrested after a young employee reported her to the police for blackmailing her boss with evidence of an affair while she herself was embezzling from the bank. I successfully secured the $100 million loan from SmithKline Bank. This financing was for a major project I had been planning for a while. The project was to create a theme park called P&O Forest. The idea originally came from a childhood friend who owned a vast piece of land. The land was covered in deep forest, known to be dangerous with incidents of people getting lost, so the plan was to develop it while preserving as much of the natural environment as possible, placing various P&Os around for both children and adults to enjoy. When I first discussed it with David, he was very enthusiastic and wanted to help.
Such a wonderful thing. Please let me help too.
Now, I'm here at the completed P&O Forest with my grandson. Watching him play innocently is my greatest joy these days. I once aspired to climb the corporate ladder in a major company, wearing sharp suits and always handling big projects. But now, even if I'm looked down upon, I find wearing dirty overalls and quietly making P&Os in a small local factory suits me better. One should not judge by appearances or status alone. Such judgments are superficial acts. Eventually, engaging in such acts may lead one to be dismissed as insignificant by others. Whatever good or bad you do to someone will eventually come back to you. Bearing this in mind, I plan to live long, seeing my grandson's face as often as possible, and continue making pianos as long as my health allows. As I was thinking this, I heard a voice from behind.
Grandpa.
Turning around, I saw my grandson, backlit by the sunlight filtering through the trees, waving at me with a smile. I pushed my old body a bit and ran toward